Okay, let's take a look as to what happened and what trades we took this week. All right, let's pop up the NQ here. Pop up the NQ this week. All right, let's look back. Monday started right here. So this week was a little tough of a open. For how I saw things when we did open up on Monday was that I was seeing that we had a very strong sell-off, and it did put in this bullish bar, and after this bullish bar was set, I wanted to see the following day to see if we could hold that globex low and push higher for a potential high low pattern where you can see, like right here, you rally up, pull back, right? You set a signal bar, so this is your pause bar, break above the pause bar's high, you rally to the upside. Similar situation that I kind of saw here while I was thinking, is like, oh, this could be a potential higher low from pivoting, slightly above this area range here. Clearly, that wasn't the case. And because we were in a bearish CBC state, so if I were to take a look, hold on, let me see if this is on the right. So regular trading hours, only electronic trading hours. Sorry about that. So if we were to take a look, so like electronics trading hours, yeah. So if we were to take a look here, um, this yellow bar signals that we were in a bearish CVC state, right? So until the state flips back bullish, which is put into this Thursday bars right here, I should have been a little more careful. So let's review what I mean by that. So there were multiple sessions that I took longs, right? And I longed with the expectation of targets that were much further than they should have been, right? And that was a common theme this whole entire week because, while I was attempting longs, what kind of state were we in? We were always in a bearish state, right? After, we created this bearish bar here, we had a gap down day, closed below this bar. So we are in a bearish state here at this point. With that being said, because we are in a bear state, I should be more wary with my targets as to how far we could go to the upside, right? Meaning that if my targets is the overnight highs or the prior day high, I should be more aware that, we might not be able to run like we were running prior in these days, right? So you can see during this whole entire run up, I was very used to, trying to swing towards new highs, right? But if you take a look, right, the main difference here now is that once we had a bullish CBC flip to the upside, we had a continuation rally straight up, right? We did have one bullish bearish day, and it was a consolidation day, but after we broke out of this inside bars high, and you can see we have a bullish CBC flip to the upside here, we continued to rally all the way up. Yes, we had a bearish CBC day, so we could have been a little more cautious until trends flip back to the upside here. Again, bearish CBC flip, right? Be more cautious if trying to take longs until, we create that sort of a pause bar here, right? So sort of a pause bar here. So, how market structure works, right? You rally, you pull back, right? Once you get that pullback, right, and you clear out this bar's high, and you get a nice hold above that bar's high, that's a potential higher low, right? So where is a confirmed higher low? A break above this level here has confirmed the higher low now. So we ran, rallied, right? Created a bearish CBC flip to the downside, and this is where I kind of got into a little trouble this week. So this week, honestly, was one of my more mixed weeks. It's one of my red weeks, one of my first red weeks I've had in a while, to be honest with you. And let's take a look as to what type of trades I did take, right? So Monday, right? Wins. What did we take? We took a NQ filler to galore on a 2-minute buy signal using 30-minute orbs as stop, targeting overnight highs plus 30% extension, right? Losses. Long 2-minute into the open with no filler to galore pattern. So if I had to guess, right, I think this was my first loss of the week where I didn't really wait for, I didn't really wait for somewhat of a better confirmation to long. So I assumed that I just kind of bought the red bar here, assuming that, oh, like markets look pretty bullish here. A nice move from the overnight where we created, higher lows, right? And I just want to essentially just look for a quick move back up to the upside and tag this overnight high, right? So first buy, you can see 2-minute buy signal to the upside failed. And then I reattempted another long, right? On a 2-minute failed to go lower using 30-minute orb stop. So I reattempted another long here, right? And let's take a look at what the differences, I guess, are now that time set, right? So like, what are the differences versus this filler to go lower pattern to the upside, right? Versus this one. So with this first trade, if we take a look at just standard, candlesticks, you can see that we have a long buying wick here, right? So that what that means is that price opened here, right? We tested below and we closed up here, right? And wicked higher. In theory, this trade looked fine, right? But once you rejected against the opening print, this itself could have just been a short to the downside. You could have literally just played, like you could have took a 2-minute sell here, right? A short to the downside of risking like either high of day, right? Or the most recent swing high. Those were some decent setups, but because we're in an all-time high market, every single time you short, you're missing an opportunity long, right? And for me, I like to play the overall trend, but hey, that's just was that. So this is Monday's action though. Look at Monday's action, and this was a little tricky because, after such a big red day, the range is very wide. So my expectations to tag the Friday high, unlikely, right? Friday high is probably very unlikely. The main target would probably just be overnight highs. So if we take a look at this now, right? So if we take a look at my second entry here, right? Another failed to go lower using 30-minute orb below, right? So 30-minute orb is set right here where you can see on the bottom of the screen. This is the 10 o'clock mark. So essentially what we did, we long the 2-minute buy signal here, right? And we got a 2-minute CBC for the upside. That means buying red is valid now, right? Until this 2-minute CBC flips to the downside. Or we could take a look. Even the 3-minute probably had a pretty nice hold as well too. So if we take a look at the Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. Where's Monday? Where is Monday? Right here. 3-minute doesn't have the clearest signal, but 3-minute, you did have a failure to go lower here. 3-minute CBC flipped to the upside, and once you got that flip, you could have bought red on all these candles in the pullback as well. But clearly, that 2-minute entry was the much better entry. So let's go back to a 2-minute chart, as most of my executions are taken on the 2-minute. So yeah, so that was a pretty good trade, right? Pretty decent trade. Monday 26. This is the wrong Monday. Sorry about that. All right, Thursday, Friday, Monday. Okay. And then let's take a look. Let's take a look here now. All right. So this trade was valid, right? You're using 30-minute or below as stops, as you know, it's a good basis of risk as you could target the other side of the 30-minute orb. And the other side of the 30-minute orb, right, also lined up with this. So once you got that 2-minute CBC flip to the upside, pull back, you buy red, sell green here. And you created, another potential higher low here. This was a good potential setup, right? Just targeting the overnight highs. So overnight highs, target tagged. I think entry number 2, I think I did try to scalp long again. So when we pulled back inside the initial balance range, and I just took it long on the 2-minute buy here, right? Targeting to the upside. Ideally, I think I wanted this area, right? But that didn't really happen. So I think I ended up selling when I had a 2-minute CBC flip to the downside where, if market was truly bullish, I'd want to see it push higher, but it was more of a struggle trade at that point. So that was Monday's action. I think Monday was a pretty decent day, right? The pattern that I had to go into was that 1-minute CBC entry 2 minutes into the session. So one thing that I want to avoid is instead of trading directly at the open and understanding that, within the first 10 minutes, there's about a 50-50 odd that both the 10-minute high and the 10-minute low gets a double break. So I have to be more cautious with that. And, I have to be more cautious with using, understanding daily. So use daily CBC state, right? If bearish, careful, be like cautious with longs, right? Target closer. That's all it is. See, like the thing is, like if you're in a daily CBC state, that doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, only look for shorts, right? Yes, we're in a short-term daily CBC state, right? But take a look at this, right? For me, this still looks like a pretty strong uptrend if you ask me. So I'm going to try to still play to the upside, right? It's just that until the time being, and we see a potential higher low form on the daily chart, that's more when I should try to trigger in and look for a better long entry, right? Okay, now let's take a look into Tuesday. So all it is, the notes from Monday, main takeaway, use a daily CBC state. That's it. And, right, use daily CBC state and also avoid 4 minutes into open. So that's the takeaway. Use daily CBC state and avoid 4 minutes into open. Let's take a look at Tuesday now. So Tuesday's action, when we did open up, right, Tuesday was a little tricky to me because with Tuesday's action, I kind of saw it as a potential, for me, right, in theory, when you break above a candle's high or low, there should be continuation, right? So when we did open pre-market, I was trying to see if we could have potentially broke and held above this priority high here. So you can see I attempted two longs here, right? The first long I took was was a potential higher low on a 2-minute failure to go lower here, and 2-minute potential higher low. So yes, we were trading below the opening print, but after we got a 2-minute bullish buy, right? I waited for a pullback, bought red, long this doji highs break, and essentially, I just was targeting. I think I really got a good exit this. I think I just saw a run up like from 690 to like 840. Like that's an abnormal move for me. So I think I just took the exit. Luckily at high of day. Maybe I was using 1 minute chart to CBC flip, but I think I trailed out using that low, which is really good because that was a mistake I made going into the week when I should have took a trail, right? So understand that we're still in a bear CBC state, right? Target should be taken faster. But the reason why I was ultra bullish on this session and I was willing to see if we could pull back into a lower end of range where 10:30, right, 10 o'clock range low and see if it could potentially turn was that once we broke above this high, I wanted to see if this high would hold and we would actually flip. But clearly, it was a little biased because, we still were holding 2-minute bear CBC state to the downside. So my second attempt long was right here when I wanted to attempt the long to see if I could, just ran the first 30 minutes low right here. So first 9:32, so first 2 minutes in, we had a low set in here. At 10:30, we just ran this low here again. So my entry was break above this candle bar's high, right? Trying to target back up here and potentially even higher, right? Reason being is because in theory, if we try to use multi-time frame analysis, this for me at this current day looked like a potential higher low setup, right? So I was like, open inside day tagged yesterday's range high, which is pretty good. But if we're able to, run this low and hold this 30-minute low and we run up to the upside, dude, I'm looking at a crazy banger trade. Ended up trying this trade, lost, I think maybe like two accounts attempting this trade. So, it is what it is. And then I ended up taking another entry, right? The next entry I took, right, was normal loss to use focus on 10-minute CBC state. But again, okay, so the reason why I said focus on 10-minute CBC state is for this day, what is it, Monday, Tuesday, is because the 10-minute state was still bearish at the time, right? And I was longing into a 10-minute bearish CBC. So clearly, trend has flipped to the downside. We're holding below the opening print. But the prior bar was very bearish where you almost kind of caught a bearish engulfing candle, right? Followed by another very 10-minute bearish bar. Without 10-minute sight, it's kind of risky to take these longs. And when you see somewhat of a 10-minute bar like this, it's tough, man. Like to long something like this, it was okay. So I think in the moment, I wasn't looking at using the 10-minute too well, which is why I kind of built this indicator to see what trend state we're in. But it is what it is. I attempted a long there. So that was that. This trade was good. Attempted a long off the mid orb low, failed. Also longed 1 hour IB low hold plus Friday low not tagging, right? So when we did pull back here, we were so close risking, Friday low that I was like, typically there's only like a 10% chance that, you break yesterday's high, yesterday's low. And there's only about like, I think like a 17% chance that you break out of yesterday's high and low of the overnight range, right? So because of that, I was willing to take a stab, right? I was like, we caught such a hard sell off already. Maybe we just kind of hold the 1030 lows here and we catch a reversal to the upside. So I took a 2-minute buy on this candle here. When 2-minute CBC flipped to the upside, I was like, this is pretty good. My target originally for this trade was the opening print, as I didn't know if we could go all the way back up to the upper end of range, which ideal was target, right? And with these type of trades, it's like what, like I left it here, right? Just because if I believe I was marking it correctly, this is probably 50% of the range. Yep. So while I was trading, I was like, I'll just take this trade into 50% of the session's range. If this trade really wanted to push, this was a 4.9R trade. If it went to back to IB high, that's almost a 7R trade. So trades like this, yes, I think I lost an account to this trade as well. But at the end of the day, right, if we're at such a bullish market, and I just kind of saw this as somewhat of a retracement back towards the end of yesterday's range, towards the lower end of the overnight lows range. And, I want to shoot my shot long, right? I'll shoot it long. If I miss, I miss, right? I lose 1R or I lose an account that's worth $90, right? If it hits, right, then we're talking, right? At the end of the day, I'm using these accounts to leverage myself to hit higher R multiple trades. If this hit, this could have been a 6.4R trade, a few bands worth of a trade, right? And, you know, it ended up failing, but again, right, what do I have to be more cautious of? Understand the daily CBC state as well as the intraday 10-minute CBC state. Was this a bad trade? Genuinely speaking, I still think Monday. I think the trades are okay. I think Monday the trades are okay. Like, let's take a look back at Monday again. I think Monday, yeah. Monday, I think the trades were okay, right? Just avoid, just the 4-minute, just avoid. Tuesday, I think the trades are okay, right? Did they work? No, right? Is my strategy always going to work? No, right? But am I doing a repeatable process? Yeah, right? This week was a red week for me, or like slightly. Honestly, I'm still green on one of my accounts. So it's like a break even like red week for me, but still, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about having like realistic expectations and staying in check. Okay, let's talk about this day now. This day was a little bit frustrating because now it wasn't too frustrating with you, to be honest with you. I had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 days in a row where I was losing accounts. But honestly, I wasn't really frustrated because even in hindsight, looking at these trades, I think I still would have took all these stabs. Okay, so now that I understand that, you know, CBC state is still bearish, right? With CBC state still being bearish, and this was this day, by the way, so keep in mind, this was this day right here, right? So we're talking about Wednesday's action now. So because I understand CBC state is still bearish, I was like, you know, let's take a look as to how the 15-minute chart looks, right? 15-minute chart looks, right? 15-minute chart for me, right? I think pre-market when I was looking at this, I was like, if you ask me, right, this just looks like this looks like one big old H pattern, right? One big old H pattern. And what that is a strong rally to the downside. You catch a bid, a relief bounce, right? And then you want to continue to catch the move back down to the downside, right? Clearly, but in theory, H patterns look simple, right? But the market never makes it easy. So what happens here was that right, was still pretty bearish on the session, but I was just incorrect with my entries as to when to get into the shorts, right? So let's take a look at short number one. Short number one, would I have done again? Yes, I think so. I definitely think I would have taken this entry again. But yeah, short number one, I took a short, right? So hold market rally, you know, got below tad bit below the opening print, right? Ran back up, and my entry was short below this 2-minute doji bar here on the break below this candle, right? We did go in profit from 944 all the way to 849. I was up 100 points, right? That's not bad. That's a pretty good trade for NQ, especially even if you're taking 3 micros. 100 points is pretty good, right? But again, 100 points wasn't my target. So would I just take it off here? Why would I take it off here, right? So like, what? If I were to take it off there, I'm still looking at a 1R trade. But essentially, I was looking at the overnight lows, and that's a 3.6R trade, right? Yeah, you know, I could have taken off for 100 points, but that's hindsight, number one. And number two, if I always take my trades off early, I'm not going to let my winners run and my original trade plan run, right? So why would I do that? There's no point in doing that. Do I exit because I'm uncomfortable in the trade? Or is it because do I exit because the trade is actually invalidating my thesis? Or do I just trade win, lose, or draw? Okay, whatever, right? Clearly you can see 2-minute bearish CBC forms looking pretty good, but the only issue is that do we hold or reject the opening print? Unfortunately, we held the opening print and we rallied to the upside, right? So 2-minute bullish CBC flip to the upside. So at this given point, potential higher lows are valid, right? Just looking for overnight highs tag. In theory, yeah, you know, like I could have taken, you know, slightly potential higher low above this bar, break above this pause bar, right? Targeting up here, but what that would have been essentially like a 1R trade. Like let's say like if I was realistically taking the trade, 1.3R trade. It's not worth the lemon is not worth the squeeze in that one, right? Trade number two. Okay. So why did I enter trade number two? I entered trade number two right here, I remember, right? Break below this candle, 2-minute CBC flip to the downside, I was looking good. Why was my risk overnight highs? Because typically there's a higher chance that only one side breaks rather than a double break to upside and downside. So I was basically risking slightly above overnight highs, right? While targeting this overnight low here. What happened? I got stopped out. Yeah, I got stopped out. Unfortunate situation. I got stopped out. And then I ended up re-entering like one account that I had left to trade. I took this 2-minute CBC fail to the downside when I saw a 2-minute bearish engulfing bar form after initial bounce high got tagged. So this trade, yeah, worked out. Took it off at opening print. Was okay. So Wednesday trades, I give it an okay. Right, zero winning trades. That's fine. Shorting 2 minutes into the open. Oh yeah. So again, like I think I also was a little too antsy, and I wanted to see like if we could just continue to fade the H pattern. So I think I also took one more stab here that didn't mark out. So again, okay, patterns, right? So patterns, right? Let's take a look. Theme, use daily CBC state, avoid 4 minutes to open, right? So I'm gonna say normal loss, right? So just it doesn't fuck with me. So we could just use daily CBC plus 10-minute CBC state, right? Avoid 4-minute into open. That's all it is. This one also use daily CBC plus 10-minute CBC state. 1 minute buy. 1 minute buy. I'm like, avoid. Yep. So you can see Monday to Wednesday, right? What's the common theme? I'm not utilizing the higher time frame trend that's in play, right? And I'm not using the intraday time frame trend that's being built, right? So like if a 10-minute CBC is flipping bearish, I'm still trying to long, right? And it's like, why am I doing that? So that's not the best. And let's take a look at Thursday now. Thursday, I think I had a pretty okay day. Yeah, Thursday was actually a pretty good day on my end. No, actually, no, Thursday wasn't a good day. So Thursday, I had a funded TPT account that I was waiting all week to trade. And when Thursday occurred, I was like, it's looking pretty good. Why is it looking pretty good? Look, overnight low, Globex opens, complete rally to the upside, right? So my eyes, any type of pullback to the hourly level I had right here was a nice potential buy. So I bought the candle here. So I bought a tweezer bottom on a 2-minute failure to go lower buy signal, right? Bought the buy. It had stops actually perfectly in line, right? Ideally, I was looking for yesterday's high, which is right here, right? So it was about a 7.3 hour trade. And I was trying to catch like an 8G banger on this trade, but it didn't work out. I think I was up around like 6G. I wasn't trying to catch all the way up there, but I think I was catching like slightly above, right? But I was only able to get up to like 6Gs on the trade, and I let the trade fully go back on me, and my account blew up. One of those days, it's just one of those days. Should I have done something better? Yeah. So let's talk about why I could have done better, right? Number one, I should have, right, put my target at the overnight highs. But Mr. Shoulda, Woulda, Coulda is the best trader, and unfortunately, I'm not Mr. Shoulda, Woulda, Coulda, so it is what it is. What is something more realistic that I could have done, right? Use a 2-minute CBC sell signal as a stop loss, right? Or, try to picture another long opportunity up here to hive day. This is still a 4-hour trade for me here, right? And because this is a potential 4-hour trade, stops should have been placed below this bar, right? Because this is now a new pivot low, right? But instead, I ignored it. And I let the trade come all the way back. Ended up getting out like loss right here on my eval account, and then I blew some funded accounts as well. And then I ended up re-entering because I was like, you know what? This could just simply be a hold of the 1 hour IB low, right? I bid the opening print when I saw a 2-minute buy signal here, right? Again, trying to target Friday's high. Did it happen? Nope, didn't happen. But hey, it is what it is, right? I don't really got control of what happens, right? And then one thing I could tell about myself of me maturing as a trader is what? Later, we created a failed auction to the upside. So I did see this potential setup, but after taking the 2 losses, I was a little mentally exhausted, and I was like, let me not, yeah, the market continue to run up, but if it runs up without me, I don't give a fuck, bro. Like I already shot my shots. I already was up a good amount on this trade, and I ended up losing it, right? So Thursday, not taking profits, letting it through our trade go right against me, right? This one was a little tough. Long as you have closer TP when in bearish CBC state, right? So, right, all I gotta use is simple, right? Instead of what? There's 2 ways to go out this situation. Number one, fuck, bro. I was up like 6 point something G's. I could have locked that in and secured a payout. Instead, I blew my account. Oh man, this market sucks. This market is coming to get me. No, fuck that. That's a loser's mentality. We're here to fucking make bread, right? Not only here to make bread, but we're here to get better every single day so that we can put the right mindset and the right habits to allow losses like this occur, right? Take a breather and on to the next, right? Because at the end of the day, I've proven to myself weeks and weeks that, I've been able to catch good trades, right? This week was just one of those tougher weeks where my expectations were a little too high, right? And I didn't adjust. Even the last 3 days, what? Use daily CBC state. Did I use daily CBC state for Tuesday? No, I wrote that down. Use daily CBC state. Did I use CBC state for Wednesday? No. Use daily CBC state. Did I use CBC state for Thursday? No. So at the 4 days in a row, right, I should be use daily CBC state, right? Use daily CBC state. That's the most important thing right now, right? If we understand what the overall trend is, right, and at this given point before this bar still formed, if we were just to take a look at these other bars here, we're still in a bearish CBC state, meaning that we have to be more careful and more cautious with our targets. We can't be shooting for the fences until we have a potential higher low turn here, right? So markets move in cycles. You rip all time high, right? Pull back, potential higher low bar forms here. Signal bar gets taken out, entry bar comes in, CBC flip to the upside, or relative new highs, right? Same thing. This looks like the same setup to me right here. Or because range is so wide, yes, I could see this also stuck in a range for a little bit to let the market cool down, right? It doesn't matter. All that matters is that I have to use my CBC state in my favor. And there's two ways I like to look at something, right? So it's number one. Yeah, like after seeing a move like this, right? This 10G trade could have easily turned into a 20K trade. Easily, right? But it doesn't matter because this move right here is not. I think the maturity part is like seeing something like this doesn't really frustrate me at all because first of all, this was like a news-driven thing, and number two, it's not my time of day. It's around like 120, so I guess you could have low key like tried to bid the level again and risk low of day. So you can risk low of day, target high of day again, 2.4 R trade. Not bad, but still, after mentally being exhausted with this one, I was over it. But there's something called what I like to see as is it like a missed trade or is it a missed move? For me, this is 100% a missed move because I wouldn't have been trading at this time of day, right? And this is just a news pump, so it's a missed move. It's not a missed trade. There's nothing to FOMO about, right? The only FOMO is if I see a really good setup and I miss it because these happen once every like 20-ish, 30-ish days, right? Or maybe in Trump market, probably once every week. But how am I supposed to time this? I don't fucking know. It's how the fuck am I supposed to know? Like, oh yeah, Trump is about to tweet. Get ready, get into position. No, that's unrealistic, right? It's like let's do what's repeatable and what's gonna make us money day in and day out, rather than try to be cutesy, Okay, last trade, last day for today, right? A trade that I did attempt was a failure to go lower here on the 1 minute chart. So I did attempt a long off the 1 minute here when I saw this pause bar get put in. I was like, okay, it looks pretty good. Let me take an attempt for a failure to go lower, right? Because we're pulling into my pre-market plans that we pulled into a lower end of range, which is around right here. I was okay swinging a shot long, right? Shot was fine, right? Risk was too wide. I was risking the overnight lows, trying to target the overnight highs, right? But clearly in equities, overnight lows can get swiped and also take out overnight highs. But because we are in a bullish CBC state, I should have been more wary of that, right? So again, I should be using the CBC state on my side, right? But I knew it was bullish CBC state, which is why I was only looking for longs today. Got wiped out this one. If I kind of done something different, I would have tightened up my stops right below the pivot low here. But still from this up here is 3R trade, still beautiful, right? Ended up reattempting the long again, right? So after overnight lows got ran, I ended up taking the breakout of this 2-minute inside bar, right? 2-minute inside bar breakout, longed, and I took it off at Hive Day here. I didn't fully take it off a high day, actually. I think I took some trims off at Hive Day. And one thing that I wanted to note, right, is when we did pull up to Hive Day, I ended up taking my full position off at the 2-minute CBC sell here, just because based off of prior experiences, like something like this was very tough, where the day prior, right, I was up and I didn't take it off at the 2-minute CBC sell, right? Whereas market ended up just completely selling off. At the time being, it looked great until it didn't look great, right? So I think I got to give kudos to myself for making that adjustment going forward. And then I ended up reattempting one more attempt where we pulled back into opening prim, tried to buy the open, and target the overnight highs. Clearly, that didn't really work out too well. The second better entry was a pause bar, run below this bar here, pause bar, and then a 2-minute buy to the upside. But again, don't very, very tricky week for myself. I think, it's gotta be nice to myself and not beat myself up too much or whatever, right? It's more like I was taking normal losses back to back to back, right? It was normal loss, right? Um, this was not a normal loss. This was just not proper trade, like not proper management in the trades, but like one, two, three, four out of the 5 days this week, I had red trades and I had a mix of green trades in between them. But in general, I need to just start using daily CBC states. So the takeaway is use daily CBC state, avoid the first 4 minutes of open, right? These 2 days are saying the same thing, and also use 10-minute CBC state. Use daily CBC state, right? So clearly, daily CBC is looking like what I need to do, right? And then just risk like 300 to 400 per trade max again, which I'm fine with that. I think the range is so wide that when I take 3 micros and they're risking about $500 to $600 per trade now, unintentionally, just because the range is so wide. But besides that, let's take a look at how markets are setting up into next week. I think going into next week, it looks pretty good. You can see, let's just take a look at the weekly bar first. Weekly bar looks like we're creating a failure to go low pattern. So if we break out of last week's high, I think this is a nice weekly filler to go lower. So just, where's last week's high? So Tuesday had the high. So as long as we crack above Tuesday's high, in my opinion, I think we have a good shot going back to the upside here and just rallying back to all-time highs. Daily already has a bullish CVC flip to the upside, so nothing too much to worry about in terms of the bearish scenario. If this could consolidate some more, perfect. If it runs up more, perfect. If it goes down, rather play up to the upside, but we just have to readjust based off of what the current market conditions are and what we are given in the current day. But yeah, that's going to be my recap for the week. I hope you guys have a good weekend. More so, I'll rewatch this replay for myself, and also, future self, just see where I'm going to be at a year from now. Because, a year ago, I wouldn't believe where I'm at right now. But it's all about keeping your process as simple as possible. And, it's like something that I figured out so well for myself. It's like sometimes it's hard for me to believe that other people can't see what I'm seeing. But it's not that people can't see what I'm seeing. It's because I study the markets in such a specific way. And I study candlesticks in such a specific way for the last 365 days straight, where every single day I'm marking out these charts, right? I wasn't making videos back then, but now I'm making more videos just for accountability purposes and just so, I get into routine of, like pre-market prep, right? Writing my prep. What's my overnight review, right? What now, like going to next week, right? Where can I see where my flaws are, right? And so I don't have to, repeat those flaws, right? Because every single week, it's all about like EMAs and no confirmation of CBC, right? So I wasn't using like proper CBC signal confirmation, right? Last week's move, right? It was like no pre-market trades, right? And use daily CBC and priority lows, priority levels guidance, right? So I kind of cut this one out the picture, right? And then again, right, I had the issue with using daily CBC. So going into this week, right, I'm gonna keep an eye of the daily CBC state. And doing this type of ritual is very good because going into each and every week, I'm able to see what my biggest flaw was last week and into this whole entire week. My daily goal every single day now is to use the daily CBC state, right, and avoid the first 4 minutes into open. That's it. It's very hard to tackle so many goals every single day or every single, it's hard to tackle like 5 different goals at once per session. But if you could identify one issue you have on every single week, right, and you work on that specific issue every single following week, every single day, it makes trading a lot easier. And at the end of the day, it's not impossible to read charts. It's all about figuring out your personal patterns, your personal issues, having strong technical analysis. Because I genuinely still believe that, the floor to your trading is your technicals. You have to first have a very good system, followed by the system needs to have a strong foundation of mental fortitude, emotional fortitude, and, emotional control and understanding when to stop. And yeah, that's going to be my recap for the week. I hope you guys have a good weekend.